What's good, guys? This is Rio, and today I'm sitting behind the wheel of a 2018 BMW 340i with the ZHP pack. And this is a bit of a special one for me because this is actually my own personal car. So just to get that little bias out of the way, now this is my car. And I also want to thank everybody for subscribing. It means a lot to me to see all the support. And if you're new here, definitely consider subscribing. It would be dope. Or don't. Do whatever you want to do. And I want to break down kind of what I think about this car now after owning it for over 2 years, but also because I'm leasing this car as a new car that I got in 2018. And now 340s, depending on the year, can be found anywhere between around 25 grand up to about 35 grand, depending on the year and the mileage, as well as the options. So again, this is a 2018 and this is ZHP, so this would be a little bit on that higher end of the spectrum, but you can definitely find 340s with decent mileage all day for around 25 grand, which is a tremendous value. And I kind of want to break down how this car compares to, let's say, an M340i, which I have reviewed on this channel. I'll link up above, so go check that video out. I'll definitely be alluding to that and comparing this car a bit to the M340 because that's the contemporary option or contemporary version of this exact car. I picked this car because this felt like a baby M3 to me, because I would have loved to have had an F80 M3, and the ZHP pack felt like it was the closest thing to an M3. So let me break down a couple of the specs on this car and then we'll get it out on the road and I'll drive it, give you guys a bit more of my take on it. So the ZHP pack here on the F30 consists of a few cosmetic things and then two really big mechanical things. You get carbon fiber mirror caps, you get a carbon fiber rear spoiler, you get an M-Performance rear diffuser, you get the M-Performance power and sound kit, which itself is a tune, but you get the M-Performance exhaust with it. It's a full catback exhaust with no resonators, no secondary cats, no additional mufflers aside from the main box out back. However, it comes with valves and it can bypass that main muffler and essentially be a straight piped exhaust from the catback. So you get this pretty gnarly exhaust system and the sound is pretty delightful, if you will. Incredible amount of burbles and pops and farts on upshift, and the car has a pretty nice sound for a modern car. And that M-tune along with the exhaust takes the power up from 320 to 355 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. So effectively the same power you get out of a B9 Audi S4 and effectively the same power you get out of an M340i. So that really did make this car quite similar to an M340i in regards to power and drivetrain. Obviously the chassis are completely different. Now, the most exciting part of this ZHP pack and the thing that really drew me to it is this really awesome M-Performance LSD limited slip differential that you get. It is otherwise an option that you could buy for around $2,500, maybe $3,000 from BMW for your F30, and then you gotta spend either some more money getting it installed, or if you're somehow capable of installing it yourself, you can. But this car came with it, and as I was leasing, I wanted to residualize everything, meaning have the car come the way I wanted it and not have to spend any money beyond that on a leased car to make it what I want, especially not several $1,000s for an LSD. So the fact that it came with an LSD really helped make this car feel like a baby M3 to me. The B58 motor is super powerful, and these ZHP cars being one of 100 in the whole US feels special. I do have the ZF 8-speed. You could have gotten it with the 6-speed, which I guess in retrospect I kind of maybe regret not going with the 6-speed, especially if I'd known how the world would have been like for the past year or so. I would have definitely appreciated having a manual transmission. But at the time I went with the ZF, white on black. You could have also got white on red, red on red, red on black, or black on black, black on red. You had a manual transmission, automatic transmission, and that's effectively all you got. Otherwise, the ZHP pack comes with the M Sport look, it comes with leather, comes with a head-up display, comes with a Harman Kardon audio system. For some weird reason, these ZHP cars did not come with the cooling and high-performance tire package, which consists of non-run flat tires. So again, unfortunately, this does have run flats. It gives you an additional oil cooling radiator up front, which again would be nice, not the end of the world, just a nice little touch, but no front fog lights, which I thought looked really cool. And unfortunately, again, this does have then fog lights. gives you larger front rotors, larger rear rotors. The front caliper is the same, but it's painted blue, and the rear caliper goes from being a floating caliper to a fixed 2-piston caliper. So a very similar brake setup to the OG M2, or even actually the F80 and F82s. So that would have been nice. I'm really surprised they didn't add it on the ZHP cars. If you're shopping around for an F30 and you notice it doesn't have fog lights, this is only true of the 340s, not true of the 335s. But for the 340s, the LCI vehicles, if you notice it doesn't have fog lights or you notice it has blue brake calipers, then yes, it does have that package. And the only thing I've done to this car is add that front M-Performance splitter, which I think really kind of wraps up the whole look, especially with the mirror caps, the spoiler, the diffuser. Having that front splitter brings the whole package together. And I also went ahead and removed the orange side markers and made them body color, match them body color, and tinted the windows. But other than that, the car is effectively fully stock. And that's just the way I wanted to do it. Let's take it out onto the road and let's see what I think. And before we do, mandatory tall boy test. So I'm excited to do a tall boy test on my own car. Let's see how many tall boys I can fit, and let's get the car out on the road. So here you go. So as I'm pulling out the 340, I'm gonna throw it into Sport Plus because that's this car's most aggressive setting. I'm also gonna put it into manual shifting mode and use the paddle shifters. So we are in Sport Plus. Look, I mean, what really drew me to this car, and I'm talking about the F30 340i's in general, is the power plant. I think the B58 motor is one heck of a motor, and it just really shines in my eyes as a turbo power plant. And despite being not really an official M car, not even really an M-Performance car, aside from the fact that this is a ZHP, but it just pulls very nicely. It makes a beautiful sound, and it feels a lot more capable, if you will, than some of the other motors of cars I've driven within this same exact segment. So I'm thinking of cars like the Audi S4, S5, you know, I've driven the B8.5, I've driven the B9s. They're great cars, they just don't have that same charm that this car has, and I think that really does come down to the motor. Now also, this CF8 speed, BMW is so good at programming their transmissions, and they're actually moving towards all just having ZF8 speeds, meaning the new M3, the new M4, they all have ZF8 speeds. So they're kind of leaving that MDCT behind, which is sad, but they're moving towards this, or a very similar box to this, and that speaks volumes as to how capable this transmission is when it comes to power delivery, but also being able to handle large amounts of torque. And I mean, these cars are pushing nearly 400 pound-feet of torque out of the factory, which again is a lot for a non-M vehicle. Now that I've owned this car for a couple of years, definitely way past the honeymoon stage, and I see some of the flaws of the F30. One of the first and biggest things you'll notice, anybody who especially is hopping out of a hydraulic setup, but anybody who's driven a very, very well-balanced electric setup will feel that this steering is quite muted and dead. I like the weight of the steering, especially in Sport Plus mode. It's really heavy, and I'm one of those weird people. I'm a fanatic of heavy steering. I'm also a fanatic of thick steering wheels. So BMWs really do hit the sweet spot there for me, because this is a pretty chunky M Sport steering wheel. And you're getting that pretty heavy steering input, especially in Sport Plus mode. But I just gotta be honest and say, you don't get a ton of information being communicated from the front wheels through the steering wheel anymore, especially not, at least in this car. I know some people say in the new G20s, and I actually found maybe a slight bit of a better steering rack in the G20, which again, you can watch my review of the M340 and even the 330 that I've done, and I kind of rave about how nice those chassis are tuned, and how a lot of the things that felt like afterthoughts in the F30 coming from the E90s have really been hashed out and figured out in the new 3 Series, 4 Series, and I'm sure the new M cars I've yet to even see in person. Yeah, the steering feels a bit, like I said, lackluster. That's one of the most immediate things. Now, the seating position, the relative driving dynamics for a car, especially right now in that $25,000 to $35,000 range, it's killer. I mean, you're getting a ton of power. You're getting ultimately a vehicle that seems like it's more driver focused than most cars in the segment will feel. And your other options could be a brand new GTI, a used Golf R, WRX STI, Mustangs, Camaros, a ton of cars that live in that similar price range, both new and used. But I think this car gives you a really nice balance of refinement, a bit of luxury, not a ton. I mean, I'm not gonna say this car is very luxurious, but being a BMW, some of the prestige that comes along with that, and some of the build quality, regardless of materials or plastics, it's just a well put together car, a very driver focused car. Everything is very intuitive within the cabin. The iDrive 6 that you get here in this 2018 car is absolutely fantastic. iDrive 7 is even better, but I would almost tell somebody to go with 2018 if they're looking at a used car, just to get this system. It's actually worth a lot, and it kind of helps BMW stand out again, because iDrive to me is really the top of the top when it comes to infotainment in cars. Give it a little rip off the line. Let's see. So what I really like, and I kind of felt it, I don't know if you guys can tell on camera, but the car, I mean, I could probably need new tires, but the car was able to kick the tail out just a little bit on hard acceleration, on full acceleration off the line in Sport Plus mode. So the transmission in its sport setting, not in its full off, not in its full on. It's that slight playful nature, again, that drew me to this car. Yeah, it's kind of that fun, playful nature that actually drew me to this car. I don't really get it too crazy sideways on public roads, but the fact that if I ever want to take a turn slightly more aggressively and get the rear end to kick out just a bit, and that's largely due to that LSD that this particular ZHP package car has. So I'm not saying every F30 will be quite as delightful maybe, but it's just really nice to get that baby M3 feeling out of quite a bit of a less expensive car. Now, I don't know if I mentioned the price, but I'm going to mention it now just in case. This car new was $62,190, so just a hair over $62,000. And that's not cheap by any means. Now, I was able to get quite a hefty discount on this car, and again, I'm leasing it, but nonetheless, I was able to get a ton of money off this particular car. But they've come down a lot. Like I said, you can probably find, if there are any ZHPs out there, they're probably in the mid-30s, and non-ZHP cars all day, low 30s, mid-20s, depending on the year, depending on the mileage. Now, one thing to look out for is, unlike the M340, the F30 340s did come as non-M Sport vehicles, and I would probably suggest most people to stay away from a non-M Sport 340 unless you really want to go for the sleeper look. But by getting the M Sport, you also get the steering wheel, you get the nicer wheels, you get staggered tires, 255 in the rear, 225 up front. So you get a few things. I actually do believe that the non-M Sport 340s do still come with the sports seats, with the adjustable bolsters that this car has. I recommend just sticking with an M Sport car. You're going to get a better overall package. And if you can find a car with that high performance tire and cooling pack that gives you those blue calipers, slightly larger rotors, et cetera, right? All of that's going to be worth it in the long run. The suspension, again, out of the box, it's not bad. It doesn't really hold water to that E92 setup, though. That was very stiff, but it felt a lot more composed. We got speed bumps. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, this car is really playful for what it is. The unfortunate reality of so many cars now is that you're gonna get a pretty muted experience, even if it's a performance car. I found that to be true with the M340. The car was so buttoned down, so figured out, which is great in one sense. My only issue with it is like getting back out of that car right into this car, obviously this being my own car. I was immediately reminded of how much more fun this felt than that, even though really that was more composed and that was probably the better car. And I think the same thing is true going backwards. I'd probably get into an E92 M3, for instance, albeit it is an M3 and this is not a real M3, but I'd probably feel like that car was more fun and had more character and was more lively. And again, this is probably the better car, but I don't know if that really means something to an enthusiast. If you're an enthusiast, you might be better off looking at more performance-oriented cars. The only problem is then we talk about reliability, and then again, this seems to be a nice juxtaposition of reliability, but fun, and at this point in time, a very appealing price range in that $20-some thousand, maybe low 30s. So I think that's the real appeal of this car. I find it to be a very pleasurable car. I think it looks very nice. Again, I'm leasing it new, won't have it forever. It'll be gone come this time next year, but it's just been a car that's fun enough. I can get the rear end out when I want. It has quite a powerful motor. I mean, look, people rave about the B58 when it's in the Supras. It's not all that different here in this 340. So it is a powerful, fun, strong drivetrain. I love it being rear wheel drive. I kind of wish I got it in manual, and it's cool because you can get these cars in manual. You can no longer get the M340i in manual. And ultimately, it just gives you that nice balance. It's a very fun car, and I think it still holds its own against some of these brand new S4s and C43s and M340is that are quite a bit more expensive today than this is. So it's definitely a killer value at around 30 grand. You're not gonna get the latest and greatest tech, but a bit more fun than a brand new M340, and a bit of a bargain, especially if you can find a ZHP car like this, because you're gonna get the full kind of M340i horsepower pack and LSD. So a real sensation, if you will. This Lexus UX in front of me has been a big buzzkill for the last couple minutes, driving exceptionally slow, but I'm gonna try to do a little drift for you guys to wrap the video up. Just a small little slide, let's see. Got him. It's a fun car, man. It's a fun car. I got it really sideways there. I wasn't expecting it that sideways. I forget that my rear tires are already kind of capiche after 2 years. So anyway, with those shenanigans out of the way, I really appreciate everyone for watching. Make sure to tune back in for more. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. And as always, beautiful M3 driving by. This is Rio. Peace.